Welcome to Texas Best Docs, where we bring you the stories and insights of leading healthcare professionals transforming the medical landscape in Texas. Today's episode features Dr. Bruce Hermann, a good friend of mine and a renowned plastic surgeon specializing in breast and body procedures. Join us as we explore his inspiring journey, discuss the importance of healthcare transparency, and get his thoughts on the impact of Texas Best Docs. Hello and welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I love, watching your podcast.
Oh, you watch my podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm honored. Well, thank you.
It's very interesting. Very interesting.
We try to make it interesting. It's informative entertainment is what I like to call it.
Yeah. And before we because we're going to talk about that. We're going to kind of get into the weeds on what goes on in your podcasts and everything. But first, what made you want to become a plastic surgeon?
Well, I think plastic surgery is the one specialty in medicine where you can use your artistic ability. I'm kind of an artsy guy. I like to play music, and I actually loved drawing when I was a kid. And so, plastic surgery is a nice marriage of science and art. And that's what really attracts me. And I did not go into medical school or even into general surgery thinking I was going to be a plastic surgeon. I actually wanted to be a trauma surgeon. And then I just kind of realized what exactly that was. And I was like, wow, it's just not maybe the best fit for me. And then I had a friend, he's like, you should check out plastics. You're kind of artsy. And I was like, I had this maybe almost like a negative connotation about plastic surgery. I don't know if you've ever gotten that feeling sometimes about plastic surgery. And maybe that was more prevalent 20 years ago. But I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. And I just loved it. I was using visuospatial skills to create something.
That's cool.
While doing surgery, I was like, this is for me. And so it's been a great fit.
Is it normally, where a trauma surgeon can naturally kind of go in that direction? That seems like it because you're dealing with,
Yeah, so that's all the pathways to get to plastic surgery. So there's two ways you can get to plastic surgery from medical school. The way I did it is I did a full general surgery training first because I thought I was going to be another type of surgeon. And then there's what's called fellowship. So I did 5 years of general and trauma surgery and then 2 years of plastic surgery fellowship. And then I did an extra year of fellowship in cosmetic breast and body. And the alternative would be to go directly from med school into plastics. They call that an integrated program where you do basically 3 years of general surgery. So it's not like the whole training program. And then you do 3 years of plastic. So it's a little shorter, that route. So obviously everyone thinks their way is the best. I do appreciate the way I did it personally. So,
well, we've talked about many different stories. I've heard some really crazy stuff on your podcast.
Yeah.
And I do believe it my jaw drops and I'm like,
I know some of these stories are almost unbelievable.
Okay. But kind of, touch on why you created the podcast and what, first of all, for people that are watching or listening that maybe haven't seen your podcast, which we will put the information in the description below to go to his podcast so you can look for it there.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Nip Talk. Very clever. I thought that was very clever when I came up with that. But the reason that it all started was I got a little bit of notoriety on social media doing things on TikTok and Instagram. And so every Friday I would do this live stream from my office, and I actually would start out talking about maybe a patient I saw that week. And then, on the live stream, people would start asking all these questions, and it would just evolve into me asking questions about medicine. And it got kind of popular. And if I didn't do it on Friday, people would be pinging me hey, where were you? And so I think the podcast was a natural progression of that. And it's been great for me. I have to say there is some, personal gain in it that, plastic surgery is about branding, and having that podcast is great for my brand. Mm-hmm. But more than that, I love the educational part about it. I call it informative entertainment. And so we talk about segments that mostly I see in the news, or maybe I saw a patient that was interesting and it brings up a topic. And the whole focus of the podcast is to educate people on plastic surgery specifically, but also other health topics. And we touch a lot on maybe bad outcomes of plastic surgery in medicine, and not in any way to sensationalize it or anything like that, but it's to educate people. This happened to this person, this is why it happened, and this is what you could do to avoid that. So, the podcast has good intentions. I think if you watch the podcast, you learn a lot. And yeah, it is specific to plastics and some health and beauty stuff, but I think that it can make you a better consumer and also potentially save you from some potential bad things that can happen.
Yeah, because you're some of those stories, are essentially what Texas Best Docs' mission is.
Yeah, there's a lot of we share a lot of beliefs here where we're trying to help people make informed decisions. Yeah. So Yeah, like I'm on board with like your project. I read about it, and of course you told me about it, and I think it's great because, the one thing I found is that it can be hard for doctors to know what's legit and what's right. Like if I go to like my anesthesiologist friends and say, what exactly does it mean to be a plastic surgeon? What makes me legit? They're like, well, I don't know. Did you do some training? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that as far as, being properly trained and being properly certified. And if other doctors don't know it, how is a patient going to know? How is a patient going to go to a web page and know if the person that has this web page up that may look great, because anyone can throw up a great web page, how are they going to know that this person's legitimate? And so, I really applaud you guys for doing what you do, which is to, try to educate people on what makes a great doc. How do I find a great doc? I think that's great.
Yeah, I guess, we always want you to Google and look up a doctor and what they have, but you can also pay for 5-star reviews.
Right.